everyone, Michael Bretti here from Bretti Musical Instruments. I've got a really insane, really amazing custom bass C4 batch unveiling for this video. This is my first custom bass C4 inline ocarina build, and it is made from an absolutely just stunning set of really unique woods. So without further ado, I'd like to give a first look and listen to batch number 17 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas from Bretti Musical Instruments. So over the course of this video, I'm going to be diving into the background of the builds, taking a look at some of the incredible woods that are used for this build, diving into the tone and response, and then giving a sounds demo in the form of a song at the end of this build. So to give kind of a brief context for this build, if you see my prior video on my very first bass C4 ocarina unveiling, which was done a few weeks ago, I kind of hinted up to this build and talked a little bit about it during the course of that video. So this particular ocarina build, this custom bass C4 build, was what really kicked off the bass C4 ocarina development. And I dive into this, the bass C4 development really heavily in the prior video. I'm not going to go into those details in this video now, but if you want to go see kind of what went into this larger ocarina build, I would check out the other video. But as kind of a background, the customer had reached out to me earlier in the year, probably around April or May, over Reddit. They had seen some of my ocarina posts, and they were really interested in a potential ocarina. So talking with them a little bit more, we worked out kind of what size they wanted, and then moving forward kind of the wood selection and the design. So at the time, I had not built a bass C4 yet. The largest size I had built was the tenor E4. I told them that I could absolutely build the bass C4. However, the build would be delayed a bit longer than usual because I had to actually go through the iterations of developing a new size, stepping down from the E to the D to the C, really getting the voicing and dynamics right before I start tackling this custom build. However, in the meantime, we were still able to work out all the details for the wood selection, so that way the woods would be ready to go as soon as I had worked out those bass C4 kind of design parameters. So this particular build consists of two ocarinas, serial numbers 45 and 46. So I'm going to dive right into the woods. This particular ocarina build, interestingly enough, is made with only two woods. Now, typically, I use at least three woods. There's the body wood, the top wood, and then the mouthpiece are typically all varying. However, this build was a little bit unique. So going into kind of the design aspect of the build and going back and forth with the customer, asking kind of, what they wanted, what their kind of dream build would be for an ocarina, asking about some of their favorite woods and what they want to see for this ocarina. The first wood they wanted to use was redwood. They really liked redwood, and they wanted to incorporate that into the body. Now, because this is a larger ocarina, I really wanted to showcase the incredible beauty in figured redwood. Especially, curly redwood has absolutely insane chatoyance to it. It just glows in the light like fire, and it is just such a beautiful wood. And I really wanted to capture that in this particular build. So because the ocarina would be all solid redwood on the body, that would also extend to the mouthpiece as well. And typically, if you've seen prior videos, you know that I use either redwood or cedar for the mouthpiece. So I make the body first, and then I glue on the blocks for the mouthpiece, and then shape it and do the voicing. However, for this build, because the entire body would be redwood, I didn't have to do a separate mouthpiece. So the entire body and mouthpiece is one solid piece. So taking a look at it, here is a look at the redwood we ended up going with. and you can see just immediately, it's just amazing. This is the most incredible piece of redwood I have used yet for ocarina building. I haven't built a redwood ocarina. I've used a lot for the mouthpieces, especially for high-end custom builds, but I've never built a solid redwood body ocarina. And this redwood was just absolutely just unbelievable. As soon as I saw this piece, I knew from the figuring that this would be an amazing base ocarina, and you can tell just the insane fiery rippling curl running across the body. The wood for this actually came in a pretty large slab. It was a pretty massive slab, so I had to resaw that, and I had enough wood from that to make two of these larger ocarinas, and I still have a large section of that I'm going to probably make into some slightly smaller ocarinas. But the ripple in the curl of this redwood is just absolutely stunning. The redwood itself is a really aged piece of salvaged old growth. So you can actually see there is some natural cracking and checking in the wood. It does not affect the integrity of the ocarina at all. With aged woods, with really old woods, with burls and stuff, there's going to be a tendency to be some natural cracks and checks. It's fully sealed on the outside and the inside, so it doesn't affect the ocarina in any way. And because redwood is a very stable wood, there really isn't much risk of this cracking. But I think it gives it a lot of character and really showcases like the age and beauty of it. But it's just, just looking at it, I just can't stop looking at it. It's just so stunning. And the thing that really stands out is just how massive these bands of curl are. Typically, when you think of a curly wood like curly maple or flame maple or tiger maple, for example, you think really tight, thin pencil bands of curl in it. And the fact that this curl is just so massive, we're talking probably half-inch gaps between each of those curl bands, really gives you the phenomenal scale of these trees. You can really almost see just the absolute majesty of the redwood trees. And curl forms in trees due to variations in compression of the wood as it grows. So as a tree grows and gets bigger, sometimes the wood will kind of compress in on itself, and you can actually see that from the outside in kind of like this rippling, or kind of like almost look that the wood is being kind of crunched. And that's what creates this curl. So over time, the wood kind of compresses in on itself. There's different variations in the density and the compression as it folds in on itself, and that's what creates this amazing iridescent curl. So the fact that this curl is so wide, so massive, it has such big bands of curl, really gives you kind of a breadth of just how big these trees are. And again, this block that I had was absolutely, it was huge. It was a giant block of redwood. I sent the picture over to the customer. I said, being a larger base C4 ocarina, I believe this is about 9.25 inches tall. A piece like this really can only be done justice on a large ocarina, because you have the beautiful massive bands of curl in it, and that can really be showcased best in a really big ocarina. So again, just the absolute fiery grain, the beautiful richness of the redwood color. You see it sometimes, you see it in the mouthpieces that I've done before on a lot of ocarinas, but it just doesn't really capture all of the beauty of the redwood in the mouthpiece. The mouthpieces are really beautiful, but actually seeing the full figure, the full color and grain in a larger size piece like this, all polished up, it's just utterly stunning. I mean, this is one of the most probably stunning pieces of wood I've used for an ocarina yet. And you can see that curl goes all the way through the thickness of the wood. It's just, I mean, look at that as that moves in the light. It's literally like fire. It's absolutely phenomenal. It just ripples so intensely in the light. It's really a sight to behold. Now, for laying out the body, because the mouthpiece would be integral to the body, how I the selection of where the template would lay in the blocks for both of these ocarinas was determined primarily by the quality of the grain on the bottom block of the mouthpiece. So when I make ocarinas, whether it's with cedar mouthpieces or with redwood mouthpieces, I pay very, very close attention to the grain quality at the mouthpiece, because you want very vertical grain, you want very straight grain, you want very even grain, and that's going to maximize the moisture absorption capability of the mouthpiece and really enhance its ability to capture that moisture as efficiently as possible, so that way the ocarina really never clogs under normal conditions. So the entire layout of both of these ocarinas was determined almost solely by what part of the redwood had the most perfect grain for the bottom part of the mouthpiece. And then the rest was laid out, and then I cut some smaller pieces to match for the top block of the mouthpiece. The second wood I thought was a really unique pairing, and again, going back to the inspiration, working with customers from all around the world, choosing all different types of woods. This is not a combination that I would have thought of doing myself, but it's a really unique one, and I think it's a really bold contrast to the redwood. And we decided to go with this really amazing spalted ambrosia maple. So when I had asked the customer what wood they wanted for the top, they had already picked out the redwood. We had gotten the redwood and we secured that, and that was already coming in. And they said they really loved maple, and they wanted, if it was possible, to get an ambrosia maple top. Now, maple is one of those woods that has so much character and figure in it. You can get flame, tiger, quilted, spalted, ambrosia. And the ambrosia is a bit unique in that it is caused by typically insects that bore through the wood, cause damage to the wood, and that trail kind of chemicals as they're boring through and chewing on it kind of causes changes within the wood structure itself and creates this really unique kind of discoloration in the wood. And on top of that, this piece also had some really nice spalting to it too. So you get both the spalting, both the ambrosia. I sent a bunch of different options. The customer picked out this one, so we secured this wood. And laying out the template, there's a few different ways we could have oriented the grain. And one of the things that I really like doing and working with for customers is not only the incredible wood selection that the customer ultimately gets to select from, but being able to lay out the orientation of the grain to achieve a certain aesthetic. So you can have the grain going horizontally, you can have it going vertically, you can have it going diagonally, and each of those types of options will slightly alter the aesthetic feel of the instrument. So for this, we ended up deciding on going with this really beautiful area of the ambrosia and spalting running diagonally across both ocarinas. So you get almost this like diagonal kind of diagonal flame effect going across the top of the wood, which is particularly very unique and very stunning. And when I see this on both of these, and especially on this one, it feels almost like a flame of ice kind of rippling across the body. So for me, these ocarinas really feel like winter ocarinas. They're being finished up now, in the month of November. It's winter, it's cold out, we're getting a little bit of snow. So for me, when I see these ocarinas, you have it's almost like you have this really amazing rich log of wood on the fire, but coming from that log, you have this almost magical icy flame emanating from that log. So it's kind of that feels almost like the winter fantasy type theme for this ocarina. And again, that maple has so much character and figure in it. It has all this spalting running through it. It has the ambrosia. It has some light curl going through. Lots of different hues of white and cream and tans. Just a really, really amazing, unique look that, again, is quite contrasting to the very dark, rich redwood body. So now to give kind of a sound sample of the ocarina, I'm going to go up and down the scale. And then play a little bit of improvisation so you get a feel for the entire range. So this is what ocarina number 45 sounds like. So one thing I want to really bring into focus with these ocarinas is that this is by far the softest ocarina, softest wood ocarina build I have ever done. So redwood itself is a super soft wood. It goes on the Janka scale of around 450, which is one of the softest woods out there. It's insanely soft. And it's so much softer than any of the other ocarina woods that I've done. Even something like maple, which goes around 900 to 1,000 on the Janka scale, this is really getting down there, close to basswood, balsa wood, paulownia, so some of the softest woods in the world. The spalted ambrosia maple is also by far the softest maple I've ever worked with. I've worked with some really hard, dense maple burls. I've worked with some insanely tough and very hard fire treated tiger maple. But this maple was really, really, really soft for maple, unusually soft. And that probably has to do with a combination of the spalting and the ambrosia in the maple. When I was actually sealing this on the inside with the shellac, because I sealed the inside with the shellac, and the outside with the varnish on the body and shellac on the mouthpiece, the wood just soaked up the finish like a sponge. It just felt so spongy in soaking up that finish, and it took a lot longer to actually finish this ocarina on the inside with the shellac specifically, just because it kept absorbing it to a really ridiculous degree. So it was really absorbative, and it took a while to actually build up a thick enough coating for the typical protection that I do for sealing on the inside. So for flute making, I think there's a common notion and I think a big misconception that softer woods are inferior to hardwoods. And it's something that I really, myself, personally do not buy into at all. I don't think there is one particular perfect wood for any instrument. There's a lot of woods used specifically of tradition, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best or superior wood for an instrument, especially with a lot of instruments that don't really go outside of the scope of a very narrow range of woods. You can't really say that there's one wood that's the best because you haven't really explored um, all the other amazing options out there. For flutes, again, there's this notion that a hardwood is going to be a better quality, higher quality, better sounding instrument. So if we take recorders, for example, typically, really high end handmade wooden recorders are the best sounding quality ones are typically shown as either the rosewoods or African blackwoods, really hard, heavy, insanely dense woods that give a lot of brightness and clarity and projection to the tone. In recorder making, kind of specifically, woods like pear wood or even maple are actually considered pretty soft woods because they're compared to the rosewoods. But for the woods that I use, because I run the range everything from the softest woods in the world to the hardest woods in the world, for me, maple is kind of in that low to mid range. So it's much harder than some of the softest woods that I've used, like the redwood. So if you would think, making a recorder out of solid redwood, for example, would be considered potentially blasphemous because it's so insanely soft. People would think it's absolutely nuts, like you're making a flute out of sponge. It won't sound good. But for flutes, I think, especially for ocarinas, I think there is a lot of beauty in all types of woods. And the quality of the tone is really going to be found in the voicing more than anything. The woods will definitely color the tone, they will flavor the tone, but they do not determine the ultimate quality of an instrument. For a really soft ocarina build, and I've done some very soft builds. I've done with the redwood, I've done camphor burl, which is very, very soft. I've done madrone burl, which is also really soft. For all of those builds, including this, the softwoods really shine amazingly with a really resonantly warm, smooth tone. For the harder types of woods, you do get a more kind of sharper tone, a little bit more crisp tone, but that's not a better tone. That's just a different tone. And I really love, especially for vessel flutes, kind of defying this convention and using super soft woods, especially for something like a bass size. Like, not only am I using a ridiculously soft wood, I'm using it for a big bass ocarina. So you'd think, it wouldn't work. It'll be too soft. It'll sound awful. But that's not the case. You can see that the tone of this ocarina is, beautifully smooth, richly warm, has really nice, perfect clarity at the top end. It's not airy, and it just has this, again, just this amazing warmth to it. And the thing that I really like about the soft ocarina wood builds are that because the wood is less dense, you actually feel more of the vibration and the resonance of the instrument in your hand. For the heavier instruments, that gets dampened down a lot, so the sound waves will bounce around in the ocarina a lot. It's less lossy, so it'll be a little bit more sharper. It'll have a little more crisp overtones. Softwood ocarinas are a little bit more lossy, and it does make it just a little bit more challenging to voice because during the voicing process, especially when it's not sealed, I'm going to have more losses because as the sound is being produced in the ocarina and the airwaves and the sound waves vibrate in the ocarina. With the softer, more porous woods, that sound gets absorbed more into the wood, so it can be a little bit more challenging to voice until it is fully glued together, fully sealed. But once it gets to that final stage after the sealing and gluing and everything, the tone really comes alive. And again, you have this really warm richness in the tone, real sweetness to the tone, and you really feel that resonance in the ocarina in your fingertips. So that's something that I really love about the softwood ocarinas. And for me personally, I don't have a favorite. Hardwoods and softwoods are just as beautiful, whether it's something as insanely soft as redwood or it's something insanely dense and hard as African blackwood. They can both be made as beautifully equally instruments, but just very different tonal characteristics. So if you're someone that actually prefers a very warm, rich, mellow sounding ocarina, softwood will probably be for you. Now, one thing I do want to also cover before getting into the next ocarina is a look at the finger holes. So in my prior video for the prior C4 batch, I had you might notice if you've seen that both hands are a little bit closer to the bottom, and the finger holes are a little bit closer together. So over the course of that development, I had gone through a lot of different iterations in kind of optimizing the finger spread and the angle of how I wanted to hold these moving forward. That batch had a closer spread, and I did another batch that was a bit wider spread. So this batch and all the other batches now moving forward is going to have a kind of a medium type spread with the ocarina. So unlike my other builds where I have a little bit more linear feel to holding it, there's a little bit more curve to give a little bit more comfort for the larger size in the finger holes in their placement. And actually, I've done it in a way that's almost a little bit asymmetric to make, at least for me, makes it feel a little bit more comfortable. So on the left hand side, again, note the pinky hole is a little bit bigger, so it does take some time getting used to. But for the left hand side, what I do is instead of holding it kind of symmetrically like this for my typical smaller ocarinas, I find with the angle and the curve of the holes and how your hand falls, it actually feels better to kind of drop your hand a little bit down and keep this hand a little bit more horizontal. So you have a little bit of an asymmetric feel, not too unlike the asymmetric feel of a transverse ocarina where you have a little bit of difference between the two hands. I kind of capture that feel a little bit in holding the ocarina. So again, dropping this hand a little bit like this and having this hand kind of a little bit more horizontally, at least for me, feels more right with this type of spread. So now moving on to the next ocarina. This is number 46, so I'm going to go again into the woods. So you can see again just the absolutely incredible rippling curl of the redwood in the body. Just absolutely amazing. There is also a little bit of cracking here and there from the natural wood. Again, this is a really old piece of salvaged redwood. Some really beautiful kind of dark veining through the wood. Just an amazingly rich color. Again, you have that insane ripple just flowing all the way around the instrument. It's just absolutely, the chatoyance on this is just unbelievable. Just seeing it in the light is just, it's a really wow factor type ocarina. And even in this particular mouthpiece, there's definitely there's some nice chatoyance in that piece as well that's captured. So just really, just unbelievable color, unbelievable figure in the grain, and just unbelievable chatoyance for a really, really stunning bass ocarina. Then next you have the spalted ambrosia maple top. So this particular one has a little bit more of a whitish, kind of like that icy flame running across the grain. So you can see this has a wider type icy flame running down diagonally. So same style. I made sure to lay out the woods closely matched because this ended up being the customer's favorite area, was having kind of this whitish ambrosia look running diagonally. So I made sure to pair both of these ocarinas with the two boards because I got these boards. They were book matched boards. So I was able to capture the same type of asymmetric diagonal figure in each. So really beautiful spalting, really beautiful ambrosia, really unique asymmetric look to the wood that really contrasts, I think complements the redwood just very beautifully. It's just a really, really unique ocarina. I'd say this is probably one of the most unique sets I've made yet. So now to get a little bit of the tone of this ocarina, I'm going to go up and down the scale and play a little bit of improvisation on this. So this is ocarina number 46, going up and down the scale. So again, for this one, you have a really warm, rich, smooth tone, really nice clarity at the top range. For the finger holes, and specifically for this one, during the voicing process, it turned out that to get it to the breath curve that I wanted, the final pinky hole and the thumb hole are a little bit larger than typical. I've been able to make these two final holes a little bit smaller on the bass C4s that I've been working on, but for this particular one, they're a little bit bigger, so it does take more work to get used to. You kind of have to really set your pinky in there. So for someone who has really thin or small pinkies, this would probably be a challenge for you and might not be as recommended. But if you practice, it's like anything. It just takes some time to get used to that. And this is where that kind of downward grip on the left side really works well. I feel like getting the pinky to fully cover that hole, you can't just rest it on the hole. You have to really put your pinky down into the hole, almost really spread the finger pad down to get a good seal, and kind of turning your finger down really locks that pinky into that hole and gets a nice solid seal. In terms of the tone between the ocarinas, these two are very similar, but I'd say there's just a little bit of a difference in terms of the dynamics and response of the ocarinas. So for this ocarina, I'd say the back pressure is a little bit higher, which means historically for the ocarinas that I've made, a little bit higher back pressure means a little bit more reserved tone. So it's not as open. You have to kind of withhold your breath a little bit more, especially on the low end. So it's going to be a little bit more reserved. It has a little bit more clarity and sharpness to the tone at the high end, but again, you have a little bit more reserved breath pressure at the bottom side. For number 45, the breath curve is more open, so you have you can breathe into it with less restriction. So there's lower back pressure. Has a really nice warm mellowness across the tone, really nice sweetness at the high end. I'd say this one's probably a little bit easier to play because I found that the higher breath ocarinas that have a little bit more reserved tone They're not necessarily worse, but they just require a little bit more refined breath control, which I think most ocarina players might not prefer as much as a more just kind of open breath ocarina that you blow into more easily. But both of them sound just as beautiful. Both are voiced just as beautifully. And with the bit smaller pinky hole on this particular one, I would say this ocarina is just a little bit all around easier to play, just with the finger hole size and the breath pressure on the low end. Both of the ocarinas are voiced to have kind of a gently rising curve across the end. So even though these are bass ocarinas, they still have the full extended 19 note range, and the final notes, you don't have to push very hard. They do have volume to them. They're not super quiet, but they're comfortable to play indoors. You can play without disturbing anyone. You can play without hurting your ears. And getting those last notes, you don't have to push the ocarina. You can breathe into it a little bit more, so it's a little bit, again, a little bit more rising breath curve throughout the range. Very typical for my ocarinas. I kind of start at the softer breath end and go kind of soft medium towards the top. But I like to make those high notes easier to play. It does, especially for the bass ocarinas, it does mean the finger holes for the last two holes are bigger to get that breath curve to even out. However, I think it's worth it just to have kind of an ocarina that plays really easily at the top end. And because of the way that they're voiced, you have a lot of beautiful clarity in the range. So they're not airy at the top end. You can play them with ease, and they still have a nice, clear tone to them, while still having that rich warmth inherent in the softer woods used for this ocarina. So that kind of wraps up the overview of these ocarinas. Now, to put things into a more musical perspective, I'm going to play a full song on one of these ocarinas. So for the song for this particular demo, I'm going to do Mononoke Hime from Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke. I think that tune will go really nicely with the deep warmth of the ocarinas, and you kind of get the richness of the old age redwood, kind of that feeling of kind of an old forest captured in the movie. So please enjoy this rendition of Mononoke Hime. So with that, this wraps up this batch unveiling. This is batch number 17 of high-end wooden inline ocarinas. This batch consists of 2 really amazing custom ocarinas, serial numbers 45 and 46, made from a really unique, just absolutely incredible selection of really curly, salvaged old growth redwood and spalted ambrosia maple. Um, this base C4 set is probably one of the most unique sets of ocarinas I've done. Again, just looking at the insane color of the woods, the insane figure of the woods, the uniqueness of the pairing between the two woods really makes for a really showpiece type of ocarina for a collection. This is, again, the softest wood ocarina I've ever made. So even though it's a base, it has this extended range, you still have beautiful clarity across the range, really rich warmth across the tone. It's a super light ocarina, and that's another benefit of softer wood ocarinas, is even for these larger sizes, it's very, very light, very easy to hold, very comfortable to hold, very easy to balance. And I hope really showcases not only the incredible beauty of the woods, but really shows that even really soft wood flutes can be just as beautiful as hardwood flutes, and really showcases the incredible richness and variety of these two particularly common North American species. So if you like this development and you want to follow along more, you can check out all the information and listings of ocarinas, current ocarinas for sale, as well as just general information on instruments and custom stuff on the Bretti Musical Instruments website. So that's brettimusic.com. You can also check out updates here on the Bretti Musical Instruments YouTube page, as well as the Facebook and the Instagram pages, where I post build pictures, links to videos, updates of new ocarinas in the works, new woods, new instruments in general. This was a really exciting base C4 build. This was a really fun build. A lot of work going into the wood selection and layout. Some unique challenges with this build, but I think definitely one of my favorite bass builds yet. These ocarinas, whichever one is selected by the customer, it's going to be going all the way to Germany. And I know they've been waiting really patiently for quite a long time. So I know they're excited to get their hands on this ocarina, and I'm really excited to have it finally start its journey out into the world and really hear what amazing music its new owner will make with this new ocarina. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and stay tuned for a lot more updates to come. There's another really insane custom bass C4 coming up right after this in just a few weeks, and some brand new ocarinas that I have not done before for the new year. So be sure to check it out, and thanks again, and I'll see you next time.